But now we're going to get into really this whole smart pulse technology and where I came from. Again, this goes back to 2005. I was very encouraged. I was in practice at that time, and I saw one of these brochures for this machine that you just put your finger in, and it gives you a grade, a number that shows you where you're at. There's 7 different possibilities, and the cool thing is you could make a protocol together and re-screen people in 90 days and be able to see improvement. So I thought, this is great. It's non-invasive. It's a way to track people's progress. This is excellent. So actually give a shout out to these folks here at Level 1 Diagnostics. They put a very nice piece together. You have it in your notes there, this link, and you can read the whole thing. But as you can see, the title of it is Pulse Wave Analysis, Digital Plethysmography, Finger Plethysmography, or Accelerated Plethysmography. So that's the official name for this. It is actually the first things that I was using was a medical device. I worked with a medical doctor. We tested the codes, make sure that it was all legit, and it was. So he had his diabetic patients doing it, even the ones with erectile dysfunction, any sort of cardiovascular types of issues. We were running these plethysmography tests to see where they were at. And so it's a very legit way to be able to assess where people are. So I like this one paragraph. I'll just read it to you. It says, the digital plethysmograph is a secondary output of the pulse oximeter, which is commonly used to measure arterial blood flow or blood saturation. Digital plethysmography provides non-invasive, continuous, and real-time measurement of arterial pressure with infrared light transmitted through a digit, a finger or toe. So the one that we use, you put onto the finger. And you'll see it looks real similar to a pulse ox, but the calibration is different to be able to pick up these pulse waves. The technique acquires the digital pulse, volume pulse, a waveform that estimates pulse wave velocity. Blood pressure is a component of pulse wave velocity, which is the standard measure of arterial stiffness, a major cause of cardiovascular disease risk factor. DVP measured by digital plethysmography has been shown to be reliable and reproducible technique for indirectly determining arterial stiffness indices. So again, I like that point. It's reproducible, it's reliable, it's non-invasive, really great first-line early warning detection to be able to see where your folks are. And this was the grades that were collected. And you can see the number 1 cardiovascular disease or risk assessment. So that was the main reason that I really got involved with it, because I wanted to be able to see where people were and what could be done in an interventive way to help them to respond favorably on their screening. But as you can see, again, peripheral vascular disease, Raynaud's, sleep apnea, diabetic neuropathy, and the list goes on as to the grade that they get for this type of technology. So this is accelerated plethysmogram waveform. So this is what is being measured with the smart pulse. It uses the accelerated plethysmogram as well as the plethysmogram waveforms. But as you can see, the A is the start point, and then B has to do with the cardiac constriction power. So the strength of the heart, that's measurement from A to B, and then C has to do with arterial elasticity, and then D is the remaining blood volume in the heart there. But it's the B to D that really gives us the data as far as what the vascular state is and the blood vessel aging degree. We're looking at the gradient from B to D. And as mentioned, there's 7 different possibilities, and this is what they look like. So if somebody has very good, healthy arteries, very good flexibility, low plaquing, low constriction, good compliance, then they're going to be at a level 1. So as you see, there's 7 different stages that it picks up on, and this is what these different waves look like. So if somebody starts to have some inflammation in the endothelium, then they're might be at a level 2. These are still good readings. These are low risk readings, but that's where they're at with a level 2. Level 3 and 4, you see a difference again from this B to D point. It starts to change quite dramatically, and so at level 3 and 4, this is where you're going to start to see fairly significant plaquing and stiffening. lack of blood flow, the inner part of the artery, the muscularis starts to thicken, and then with each successive number after that, then the risk factor goes up. But that's what we're measuring, is this waveform from every time the heart beats. And as mentioned earlier, I think it was Leslie was talking about the blood vessel within the fingertips. And so that's what we're looking at. This is a very good reflection of what's happening throughout the body. It's a good compass. It kind of shows you a direction in which somebody is going with their cardiovascular health. But that is what's being picked up by the accelerated plethysmogram. So in correlation to the artery, again, if you're a stage level 1, level 2, you got nice open arteries, a good healthy muscularis. The endothelium is nice and Teflon-like, as opposed to when it gets up, especially up in the 5 and 6 range. It's quite thick and stiff. The plaque is pretty significant. But stage 4, level 4 is really where I see statistically over since 2005 that I've run hundreds of these scans where there's concern that you really want to again start shifting them to other direction. Regardless of what their physical age is, we try to do what we can to get them to a 1 or a 2 category, and that is entirely possible. So this is actually a study that was done that shows a pre-treatment and a post-treatment of that accelerated plethysmogram waveform. So this individual who had pneumonia, they were at a level 5. This yellow line is the APG waveform. So they were a level 5, and then after they did a treatment, then you can see that they responded and went to a level 3. Now, no doubt these were individuals that were treated with some sort of medication. I'm not sure which ones that were used. This data actually came from Korea. Korea has been the leader in the plethysmography field, and so this is some of their data. But the point is, you can see that you can make a change in their wave patterns. This individual was a diabetic. He was at a level 6 prior to the diabetic treatment, and then he went to a level 3. So that's one thing about this particular device as well, is that you'll get some people that have obviously cardiovascular issues. They might be on 4 or 7, 8 different cardiovascular types of medication. They may test very well. And the reason is because synthetically the body is doing all it can to keep the blood flow and the flexibility and all that open in a synthetic way. So a lot of times you'll be saying, how in the world can this individual test good? I know they can't be that good. But again, you have to go back and really look at their whole health history, look at the pharmaceuticals that they're using, and that will probably tell you the story. So because you look at a blood pressure medication, what is it designed to do? It's designed to relax the blood vessel, allow blood flow to go through, and so it's helping to increase blood flow. What does a drug like Lipitor do? Well, it does actually help the body to create nitric oxide. And so when we screen people that are on diabetic meds and cardiovascular meds, they oftentimes will test very good. So in that case, we'll just say, hey, congratulations, your meds seem to be working well, but if you're looking to really get your arteries healthy, then these are some other things that you might think about doing. Or if you're looking to maybe reduce, with your doctor's assistance, some of the meds that you're taking, these are some of the things that we might suggest. So heart rate variability is another tool that's very helpful. I know Dr. Porter uses it very extensively with what he does. A very cool technology. Probably some of you are doing that. And basically what it's looking at is the autonomic nervous system, and it's looking at changes from moment to moment. Each heartbeat is looking at to see these very minuscule changes from one heartbeat to the next. So there should be a certain amount of variability from one heartbeat to the next. Because as the person is sitting there, their eyes open, they're hearing things, they're seeing things, and their adrenals should be causing these changes. These stresses should be making small changes from one heartbeat to the next. So if you're healthy, you'll have good heart rate variability as compared to if you're starting to get very low energy and you're starting to get sick, your heart rate variability will be less. So we can see just a little bit of the effects of parasympathetic to sympathetic, and again, you want these balanced When you're under parasympathetic situation, that's when you have good digestion. So that's why they talk about relaxing, making sure you're relaxed when you eat. You do help your digestive juices. As compared to when you're under stress, well, then things shut down. And so that's just a little bit about the difference between parasympathetic to sympathetic. And most Americans are definitely in this division with the pedal to the metal and chronic stress type of a situation. So to really heal, that we need to get them back to a balance between parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So that's what heart rate variability looks at, is really the emotional as well as the physical stress. And there are just tons of studies on heart rate variability and the benefits of using this as an assessment tool. This is just a recent one that I just grabbed offline from Harvard Health Publishing that says heart rate variability, a new way to track well-being. Well, it might be new to them, but it's been around for a long time, and people have been using it very efficiently within their practice to be able to assess the health of their clients and patients. So and that brings us up to the smart pulse, and we're going to kind of pull all this together, the information about heart rate variability as well as the plethysmography. So the smart pulse tester, it does both at the same time. It does a simultaneous heart rate variability, 3-minute, as well as a plethysmography test, which looks at the state of health of your arteries. Now, the ones that I first got involved with back in 2005, all that was available were the medical models. And so they were like $6,000. There's some that are even more expensive than that. There's one called the CV Profiler, and it's like somewhere around 30 grand that some of these doctors, one of the doctors that I've learned from, was a mentor to me, diabetic specialist out in California. He had one of those Mac Daddy CV Profilers that he was using with his diabetic patients. And incidentally, since he started using the nutritional protocols that I'm familiar with, he went from sending 250 patients a year to cardiologists to sending like one per year, to the point where these cardiologists all wanted to take him out to lunch and find out what they did. If they made him mad, he's not sending them patients anymore. And it turns out, well, I just don't have a need. I've been using this nutrition, and I just don't need to do it anymore. And they really could care less. So they didn't go to school to work with these little inexpensive nutrients. They want to do the big dollar surgeries. But anyway, so those are the different stages of technology that's available. I started with a company called Meridian, using their product to do this assessment, and then Medicor is the one that I was using after that. But again, they were like $6 grand. But the same company, Medicor, that makes those medical devices, makes these smart pulse. And just to kind of let you know what that is, you might be wondering, well, how much are these? So these are just $500, and you get all the same great information. So this is what they do. Starting from the top, it tells you what your average heart rate is over the 3-minute period. It shows you ectopic beats, so how many skip beats an individual might have during that 3-minute test. So our recommendation is if they have more than 5 skip beats during that, either they did a lot of moving or talking or during the test, or the pulse was not able to pick up because their hands are too cold, which incidentally, that's the biggest challenge to running these tests is cold hands. So this weekend, it's very difficult to get any test, but we have a hand warmer. And so if you're interested in doing it, come over and we'll start by getting your hands warm enough with a hand warmer. And mine are freezing, so I don't know how you guys are, but a lot of people, all the air conditioning, again, all that circulation gets sucked in from the extremities, and it's hard to get a good test. So you need to make sure that the person is ideally calm, both feet on the floor, eyes open, so that they can make those adjustments with their nervous system to see how they're reacting to these stressors. And you have them quiet as much as they can. And so you ideally get them relaxed for a few minutes before you run the test. And again, you got to have their hands warm. But you can see right away if you're getting a good test or not. It's completely evident as you're sitting and watching the device run. So checks for those skip beats. And then the other things on the stress analysis side, as you can see, it shows to see if they're sympathetic or parasympathetic dominant, or how balanced they might be. It shows their physical stress number, which is usually a good indicator of just how they're doing in a physical way and what physically is going on acutely, whereas the mental and emotional stress is more about mental emotional. So you get a value, and on that part of the test, the lower the number, the better. 100 is brought out, as you see there, is a poor reading. It's a lot of stress in that area. And then you have the stress resistance, which is a good indicator of their adrenal function and how well they're able to deal with stresses. And so you want that number to be as high as possible. And then on the stress score, you want that to be a 50 or lower is what you want to see there. So that's the ideal on the stress analysis. That's all the heart rate variability information. And then the arterial health analysis is all of that plethysmography, the accelerated plethysmogram information. So it's going to give you a value for the large artery circulation, the arterial elasticity, as well as the peripheral elasticity. And so you want those to be as high as possible. The higher the number, the better. And so it boils everything down to an arterial score, and anything over an 85 is where you want to be on the arterial score. Again, the higher the number, the better. And then it shows you which type that they're in based on their wave pattern. And so, as we talked about already, 1 is the best case scenario, 7 is the worst case scenario, and you can see where they're at in between there. And so if they're 1 or a 2, then we look for ways to try to keep them at that rate, and if they're getting into the 3, 4, and up, then we look for ways to try to get them back into that 1 or 2 category. So if you're showing a bad score, what can be done? This is a really interesting study that I saw early on in this whole research for nitric oxide that I was doing. And this is a study done by Dr. Ignarro, who's one of the Nobel Prize winners for the Nobel Prize winning nitric oxide research in 1998, as well as Dr. Cook, the head of cardiovascular research at Stanford. Both of them did independent studies that showed the same thing. And basically, when rabbits were given a high cholesterol diet, they're in group 1, they all got plaque. And when they just gave them a regular rabbit diet, it didn't really do anything to the plaque. They just kept it. Then they gave them different types of nutrients that they knew had endothelial benefits. And so, as you can see here, group 1 is arginine, which is a nitric oxide precursor. Group 3, they just gave citrulline, which is also a nitric oxide precursor, and then arginine and citrulline, and they did vitamin C and E. But as you can see, where they got the greatest results, the most synergistic results, when they combined arginine, citrulline, vitamin C, and vitamin E, they got the most plaque reduction. So it turns out that arginine and citrulline are nitric oxide precursors, but vitamin C and E are nitric oxide protectors. So nitric oxide is very susceptible to oxidation, so the antioxidants help to keep that nitric oxide working just as long as possible. So we go through this with every test that we do. And my wife, Kim, actually, she's graduating this week, by the way. She took Dr. Pesick's course, and so we're pretty excited about that. So we work together, and this is one of the things that we do with everybody that comes through the door. This is one of the first things that we do with them. I'd kind of do a little bit like Dr. Jeff does. He mentioned that you kind of want to see where they're at and whether you want to take them on or whether you're right for them. And so this is one of the things that we do to start the conversation, to see whether or not this individual is going to be a right fit for us, because you invest a lot of time in your people, right? So you want to make sure that they're the right fit. So we go through this screening, and it gives them a lot of good information. There's other screening devices that we use after that if we're going to take them on, but this is a good way to get in a good conversation. So these are some of the nutritional recommendations that we might make. This is something that some people that have the devices, they'll kind of alter and use it for the things that are important to them, different supplements or techniques that they have found to work. So with the artery health test, we're looking for 85 and over. We get their typing, And then depending on where they test, we make the recommendation. So M3 Miracle Molecule Max is, again, that flagship product that we created with the arginine and citrulline and all the antioxidants and support. And we titrate that according to their type that they showed up. So back to that APG screening, if they're a type 1 to 3, we say, hey, congratulations, if you want to stay that way, these are the ways that I would suggest doing that with the M3. Take 1 scoop 2 times per day. That's it's a therapeutic dose, but it's also our basic dose, where if they start getting the type 4, type 5 category, type 6, then we actually adjust the amount that they take to get the most benefits. And again, 90 days is really how long that they want to go. So we consider that M3 to sort of be the backbone of our protocol, and then you can add these other nutritional components to help them along. They all have good research. Omega-3 oil, of course, we know how good that is to help for the inflammation within the arteries and to melt cholesterol. And then curcumin, we know how great that is for inflammation, as well as it's been studied for flow-mediated dilation, so it helps for blood flow as well. Chelation type of nutrition, EDTA, you could add to that the serrapeptase and nattokinase, some of the enzymes that help break down fibrin, CoQ10, vitamin B6, and folate and B12, as well as magnesium, vitamin K, as our last doctor presented. So those are all things that can be helpful into getting their arteries to be much healthier over time, along with lifestyle changes. And then the heart rate variability. Some of the things nutritionally they could do would be to support their adrenals with things that are like licorice and maca, ashwagandha, adrenal glandulars, DHEA. Those are all possibilities to help support their adrenals, and that can be evident in their test as well as their symptoms that they're having, low energy in the afternoon, if they're having hormonal swings. Those are all things that you can look at, dilated pupils. And then if they're having a lot of sympathetic nervous system issues, then things that help to calm that down, like valerian, holy basil, lemon balm, passion flower, CBD oil. Of course, now we would add to that, no doubt, grounding, as we saw earlier today, as well as the brain tapping that Dr. Porter mentioned. Those are all really powerful things that can be done to get a much better heart rate variability, stress, emotional remedies, emotional release techniques. Sleep is key. That is so important. I mean, if they're not sleeping, then they're not recouping. So it is very important. So also a big proponent of melatonin and things that can help individuals to sleep. Exercise, of course, a good stress release, relaxation, deep breathing. Those are all things over time that can help them to release those stresses that are showing up. So these are the recommendations that we go with. And again, this can be altered and made unique to your own clinic and the things that you're doing. So this is my information that I have. Again, we're going to have a booth. And